And we're live, y'all. Welcome to the BirthFit podcast. Welcome back for our regular listeners and anybody new. This is the BirthFit podcast. I am Dr. Lindsay Matthews Cantu. I'm the BirthFit founder and CEO. Crazy, I know. Today we have a really special guest with us. And before we dive in, I got two major announcements. One, you hear me say this every week, every time on the podcast. Be sure to check out our nonprofit, which is website nonprofit.birthfit.com. And it's all for military mamas, those that are active duty or those that have spouses that are active duty. Just go over there, check that out. And if you have any questions, email us. If you want to donate, $5, $10, anything helps. And then our second big announcement is our BirthFit coach course is open for enrollment right now. It's actually open for enrollment for those that are on our wait list only. And then if we have any spaces left in April, we will release those spaces open to the general public, those on social media, our general newsletter list, things like that. But I'm so ready. Today, we get to talk to the one and only Dr. Cleopatra. And for those of you that don't know, she's been a major inspiration to me on my fertility journey. And I haven't had the pleasure of working with you directly, but I would say your podcast that I've heard you on, on guests on other shows, and then following you on Instagram, the socials, has really been a breath of fresh air for those over 35. And if y'all don't know me, I conceived naturally at 40, had my baby at 40, and this woman right here is doing God's work. Like, I think she is just flipping the script on what Western medicine has had to say in the past about women and their fertility and all the things, but we'll get into it. So I want to welcome Dr. Cleopatra, and I would love for you to share who you are, where you're at, any kind of things that come up from your heart right now, and I'll be sure to lead the conversation.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me,
Yeah.
Lindsay. I am so inspired by you. Also, I've been watching you on your journey as well and celebrating you as a new mama, celebrating your beautiful, delicious super baby girl and the incredible instincts you have for mothering and for taking care of yourself as a new mama, which I think we don't get encouraged in enough to really tap into our own instincts and what our gut tells us. And everybody's like, read this book and do that. And of course, these guides can be wonderful, but at the end of the day, this is us. This is our baby. This is our family. This is our life. And we have to do what feels right for us. And we're the mama bears. We always know best. And I tell every woman we work with that you are the mama bear, even before you've conceived your super babies. And I just want to say that I really thank you for your introduction when you said this woman is doing God's work. I really believe that that's the case, that's what I was put on this earth for. I lost my mother at birth, which was the most horrible beginning that you could ever have to life, as you can imagine. And then not only that, but I was born into tremendous poverty with a single dad who was taking care of 5 children 7,000 miles away from any relatives because my dad had moved to America. And that's your super baby girl. And anytime you want to bring her into our conversation, please do. She is so welcome. We love every super baby here. Hi, beautiful. Hello. And I really, that there was so much darkness in my beginning, but the one thing that I can't deny is that because of my beginning, I was so clear about what I was supposed to do on this earth. And this work has grown out of me for decades and has just created a movement of mamas having their super babies well into their 40s. Our record is 48 and a half as of right now. And we're always looking to push those boundaries.
That's wild.
Yeah, and we welcome, unlike other places, if you're in your 50s and you want to try, we're not going to turn you away, because we're not going to do that to preserve our success rates. We're going to do everything that we can to help you as an individual and to keep pushing the boundaries of what is believed to be humanly possible for female reproduction. And I really, like I said to you before we got on, I'm here, I'm open, I have zero agenda. So let's go wherever we need to go to help the women and humans who are listening to us.
Yeah.
And so I'm here to have whatever raw, real discussion serves people best.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, you're my kind of people.
Thank you. You
So,
too.
how did you get started on this work? You know, you mentioned the beginnings of your life were a bit dark, and then how did you, because it seems like a calling, like, okay, you were placed on this earth, birth was going to find you, but how did it find you?
Yes, well, it found me because I had such an appreciation already at a very young age that when reproduction doesn't go well, it's one of the hardest things in the world, because I lost my own mother at birth. But I really deeply believed that fundamentally reproduction and pregnancy were the most beautiful things in the world, and that I was put on this earth to do something to help reproduction go well for as many women and children as humanly possible. And so I was a little girl informally studying and observing all of the pregnant women and mamas and looking at them. Why do they look so stressed? Why don't they look happy, even though they seem to be doing what they
Yeah.
wanted to do, which is be pregnant, have a child? What would make things better for them? What's happening with the ones who don't seem to be able to have the thing they want, which is get pregnant and have a child? And then when I was 18 years old, literally 1 or 2 months after my 18th birthday, I went into a psychology laboratory at the University of Miami, where I immediately started studying basically medical health psychology and the intersection with social and cultural and positive psychology and psychoneuroimmunology. So this very interdisciplinary science about how to make pregnancy and reproduction go well for people. And there I started to develop what is now known as the Primester
Yeah.
Protocol, which is what we've used to make super babies now in over 43 countries on 6 continents.
Yeah.
So it is tested, tried, and true. And I think what's so powerful about it, fundamentally, it's an identity shift of who we are and what's possible. And having always starts with becoming. So even though
Mm.
no other approach to fertility and pregnancy and the intergenerational transmission of health talks about identity and our psychological habits and hygiene, they're actually the foundation
Yeah.
for everything that we do in the Primester Protocol. And they're always the key to unlocking success, no matter how low your AMH is, no matter how many pregnancy losses you've experienced, no matter how bad your partner's sperm is, if you have a male partner, it's the answers are always there. And I think that that is why. And then we also have the very hard kind of biological, physiological science of epigenetics in the Primester Protocol. But I think that that's why it's so successful, because it's fundamentally an identity shift about who we are and what's possible for us, and about taking our own fertile power and self authority back into our own hands, back into our own hearts and souls, and knowing that our fertility is already innate to us and we don't need any guru, expert, IVF doctor, Dr. Cleopatra even to give it back to us. What we need is a set of tools that allows us to, number one, identify with it, number two, believe in it, and number three, access it to its fullest extent. And that's what we do, and that's why what we do is so powerful.
I love that because I like you said, I feel like so much of the fertility obstacles with women are in that emotional, spiritual component. At least I felt like that for me too.
Everybody feels that way, even though you it's so offensive to say that fertility or infertility is psychological to some degree. And when people say
Yeah.
that, we're all deeply offended to our core, because it's not about, oh, just relax and
Yeah.
everything will be fine.
Yeah.
But it is psychological in the sense that there are these critical feedback loops between our psychology and our fertility and pregnancy system. Hi, sweet girl. You're so big and delicious. Hello. Are you having fun with mommy? Mommy is so cool. She's so fun to hang out with. Oh, so special. It's so special. I I I just think that we have to have a new understanding of what the psychological, mental, and
Yeah.
emotion and spiritual drivers behind the fertility gifts and challenges that we encounter are, because
Yeah.
it's not about just relax, go get drunk, have a Xanax, and then you'll
Yeah.
get pregnant. That's not what this is about.
Yeah.
This is about, how do we soothe the reptilian brain, the central
Yeah.
nervous system, the overcome the dysregulation in the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal cortical axis, which is
Yeah.
the body stress response system, but it's also principally involved in the ability to ovulate, get pregnant, stay pregnant, grow a human, breastfeed a human. And so that part has really been missing from the traditional infertility and fertility care
Yeah.
system, and even the prenatal care system, and then the support and so other social components, because it sounds kind of woo woo or optional or nice to have, but not necessarily necessary to
Yeah.
have support. But actually, we have mountains of data to show that as women, especially all humans, but for people who identify as female, especially, having support makes everything that they seek, aspire to, and want to do, be, and have and accomplish easier,
Yeah.
including the fertility and pregnancy and family outcomes that they want to have and experience. But we don't talk about that enough either.
Yeah.
And so, of course, those things are foundational at the Fertility and Pregnancy Institute, in my organization, and in the way that we approach helping people to get pregnant, stay pregnant, and then have their super babies. So most people who come to us are people who've been struggling for months or
Oh,
years to get or stay
yeah.
pregnant. I mean, up to 2 decades is our
Oh,
record for up to 2 decades is the record for how long someone had been considered infertile before they
that's
came to
kind of
us and had,
crazy.
yeah, amazing. And 17 miscarriages is also a record that someone
Oh
came
my
to us.
God.
We've had one with 11, one with 14. She came to Primester, her 15th pregnancy. She had her super
Oh,
baby
that gives
girl.
me the chills.
17, yeah, it's amazing. It is God's work. It really is
Yeah.
God's work. And it's just so, I think what's most important about it is remembering that it's it's God's work, not because you have an expert there. It's God's work because it reminds you of who you are and what your power is. And I think that that's really the most important part.
Yeah, I love that because I think on my I was just a little about my journey. The getting back to like unlearning everything, unlearning that the power's outside of me, it's inside of me, and that
Yes.
I choose for God to be on the altar of my soul. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So, gosh, I love that that's part of the Primester. So, speaking of the Primester, can you share a little bit more details for anybody that's listening on
Yeah.
exactly what it is, how they would sign up,
Yes.
what to expect before we go
Yes.
on?
Yes. Okay. So it's really hard to encapsulate the trimester in one neat package, because it is really a whole self, whole system, whole ecosystem, and whole life overhaul in service of your fertility and pregnancy and family goals. There's really no part of yourself that is untouched by the Primester protocol. But essentially, the Primester protocol is allowing us to address all of the epigenetic pathways that we have available to us to have our, and I'm going to explain what epigenetics is in just a second, but to have our highest fertility, to have our healthiest experience of pregnancy, and to have our super babies. And when I say super babies, I don't mean somebody's baby is better than another person's baby. Nothing like that. When you get to have your super baby, it means that you get to have the healthiest, happiest, brightest, most well-adjusted, and neurocognitively strong and resilient to the stresses of the modern world baby that you can possibly have, given your genome and your epigenome, which is your genetic expression, and that of the other person providing DNA for your baby, whether that's your partner, or if you have a same-sex partner or a non-binary partner and you're using a sperm donor, then it's that person, whatever it may be. And when I talk about epigenetics, what I'm talking about is the expression of our genes, our genetic expression. So we have no, hi sweet girl, we have no control over our genes. We were born with the genes that we are always going to have. However, we have a tremendous amount of ability to shape how our genes express themselves. And that's what our epigenome is. And what's incredible is that infertility, pregnancy complications, autism, most of the mental, physical, and neurocognitive health disorders that we worry about day in and day out are far more epigenetic in nature than they are genetic. Some are
Yeah.
80% epigenetic and only 20% genetic. For example, autism, which does have a strong heredity component. So it's not unusual to see autism run in families. So if a couple has an autistic child, they're more likely to have another autistic child, for example. But even autism is at least 65% epigenetic. And you have so much power in the trimester, which is that period of time leading up to conception. It's this critical window of opportunity when we have the ability to really deliberately and intentionally shape the way our genes express themselves so that we tap into that innate fertility if we've been struggling with fertility, getting pregnant or staying pregnant or having a healthy pregnancy or baby. But also is the same process utilizing that primester, that window of time, through the act of primestering and priming our bodies down to the level of our cells and our genes to lay that strong foundation for our super babies, because our epigenome gets passed down through a process called epigenetic inheritance. So many of the things that happen during pregnancy and the outcomes we see in children actually start being programmed in utero and prior to conception through the health of the raw material that go into making that human. So the egg, the sperm, but also once the egg and the sperm meet, the uterus, the immune system, the digestive system, which we consider to be the mother of fertility. And people don't talk about the brain is the most important fertility organ. Everybody thinks of the ovaries or the uterus, but actually
So
the brain,
true. Yeah.
yeah, the brain and the central nervous system more broadly are programming so much of
Yeah.
what the ovaries are doing. For example, those
Yeah.
hormones that are affecting your ovarian function are originating in the
Yeah.
brain, right?
Where do you think they come from?
Yeah, exactly. So and the neurotransmitters are so important as well. So I think it's just so powerful when you know that there is this magical window of time that you can leverage for the benefit of your own fertility and for the benefit of your
Okay.
children and your because we can make super babies and super grandbabies and
Yeah.
super great grandbabies, because these effects, they cross multiple
Oh, that's
generations.
awesome to think about.
Yeah. And so we have so much more ability to shape our experiences in the area of our reproductive lives than
Mhm.
we know, because nobody teaches us that. So we
Yeah.
just so much are on a mission to make sure that people understand that. That doesn't mean that we have total control. We don't have total
Yeah.
control anywhere in our lives. Nowhere.
No.
We have to do everything that's within our power, within our ability and means to do. And then we have to have faith and belief that the rest is coming together and for us and supporting us,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
absolutely.
that's what that the people ask me often, is faith enough to get pregnant when you haven't been able to get pregnant? And my answer to that is that faith may not be a sufficient condition, but it's a necessary condition. You've got to
Yeah.
have the faith as the foundation and the strategy and the tools on top of
Yeah.
it. And
You
those
got
two
to do the
things
work.
together. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But if you do the work and you don't have the faith, it
Yeah.
may not be enough to just do the work, right?
Absolutely.
So there, and that's part of the psychological hygiene and habits and the identity shift that we're talking about, which is why it's so fundamental. And there's nothing woo-woo about that. That is hard science. That is the hard
Right. When you look at
science.
your website, it's like,
Yeah.
he's a scientist right here.
Yes. With millions of dollars and
Yeah.
National Institutes of Health funding, National Science
Yeah.
Foundation funding.
Yeah.
Yes. Scientific
It's
publications. I
awesome.
mean, and these things are just so important. And we know it intuitively in most areas of our lives, but it's really become left out of the fertility space. And I think that's because what's become the go-to option is intervention in the form of IVF. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, the role of IVF is to increase odds of success by circumventing everything that you as a human being could possibly do to mess it up, right?
Yeah.
So because there are all these individual level factors that go into whether an IVF cycle is going to be successful or not, but the IVF clinics don't have any ability to help you address those individual level modifiable factors. So what they want to do is kind of like push them away so that they can minimize the noise that they're creating. But that's not how life works, right? You can't separate those things in reality. So
Yeah.
even if you're somebody who's decided to do IVF or is going to be freezing your eggs, you still have to take advantage of the trimester before you do that. You can trimester and get pregnant naturally and not need IVF, but you can never go into IVF and not trimester, because here's the thing. The
Yeah.
only thing that allows IVF to be successful is healthy raw material.
Right. That
And
makes sense.
IVF can't give you healthy raw material. It can just extract large amounts of your raw material.
Yeah.
But if your raw materials are not healthy, there's nowhere to go. The
Yeah.
IVF stops there, because if there are no eggs that fertilize, no embryos are created, or the embryos are chromosomally abnormal, there is nowhere to go next in the IVF process. So that's always going to be, you guys are so beautiful together. You guys are having so much fun together.
Oh my gosh.
I'll finish this, and I feel like I have so many things I want to ask you.
Yeah.
By
I'm
the
like,
way,
no, I'm interviewing you. No.
I know you're interviewing me. Actually, we're doing and the inaugural annual Super Fertility Summit. And I really hope you'll
Ah,
come and join me on it, because I have a million
yeah.
things I want to ask you. It's going to be so incredible. It's going to be
Good
incredibly
for you.
disruptive, which is what I want.
Yes.
Disruptive in the best way.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to know that every time we look for that, I heard my husband always listens to Colin Cowherd. He's like an amazing sports fan, and where it doesn't matter what country or continent
Yeah.
we're in, he's listening to Colin Cowherd. And I heard on Colin Cowherd the other day, somebody said, we're a microwave society. We want the result immediately. And
Yeah.
I think we see that in the fertility space as well. Like
Yeah.
we want to just take a pill. And believe me, I believe supplements are very important. We created a supplement line because they are so important,
Yeah.
and because I wanted to make sure our mamas and dadas and parents of all genders were taking the right ones, the
Yeah.
right forms, the right dosages, without harmful things, all that. But one pill is not going to fix this. You know, that
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no quick fix. It's just like longevity and fitness. You can't outsource that. Nobody can do that work for you. You can have a guide who says, look, I've looked at every possible step in the world from a scientific lens. Here are the ones that have the strongest evidence in support of them. Here are the exact steps to take in the exact order for the exact duration for, that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're doing in the Prime Master Protocol. You can save your mental energy trying to mastermind it all, put it all together for yourself. But I can't take the steps for you. I can only put them in front of you. You've got to take my hand and
Yeah.
walk with me. And that's the thing. It's easier to throw, for a lot of people, it's easier to throw money at the problem. Let's
Yeah.
put it in someone else's hands because you're fearful and you're like, wait, let them take care of it instead. I don't want to do the work. I'm afraid to be responsible in case I do it wrong, or
Yes.
I'm busy. I need, a lot of
Yeah.
our mamas are very busy professionals who have waited a long time to start their partners start their families. But that's just not how this works. It's always
Right. Right.
require us to do the work. And I did all the work too, even though I had zero expectation of having fertility challenges. And I had my 3 super babies in my late 30s and 40s.
Awesome.
And so if we're pregnant on the first try with each of them, they were all conceived as planned and born in March as planned. This is their birth month. They were born within 2 weeks of each other. We need to know that's a scenario that's
Yeah.
possible too for a woman in her 30s and 40s, even though
Absolutely.
nobody
Yeah.
will want you to believe that based on what they're telling us every day, right?
It's so true. And what you were saying about the work, like you've got it's your journey, or this woman next to me, it's her journey, it's my journey. And it's interesting because I think over the years what I've realized is like the radical responsibility scares people.
It really
Not
does.
and it's like not just in the birth world, but in health and fitness. But and in the birth world, it's like extra weight because we're looking at life and death,
Yes.
like as a doula, um, or somebody that's attending birth. And I think that's the thing that people don't want to face in our society is they don't want to look in the mirror and face that life and death or birth and death conversation, and that it's so much responsibility for us, but we just want to outsource it.
It's, you know what? It's a lot of responsibility, but it's also a tremendous privilege.
Yes,
And
rewards.
the payoff, right,
Yes.
is off the charts.
Yeah.
And so I want to tell people, don't be afraid of the radical responsibility.
Yeah.
Be drawn to the beautiful reward. Recently I had this realization. I had been going through a really hard time in 2023. And it was an interesting hard time because for the first time in my life, if only for the second time in my life, I felt very disillusioned. And it was at a time when my life was really good and all the important things in my life were beautiful. And so it
Yeah.
was a little bit of a strange thing to be struggling internally, but I was in a massive stretch and growth
Yeah.
period. And one thing that I realized was I was selling myself short and selling myself hard. I don't even know if that's a phrase that's used, but I was making myself experience a hard time because I had this belief that once I had achieved a certain amount, a certain thing, I had a certain amount of wealth, my company
Yes.
is making 7 figures annually, that there comes a point when life doesn't challenge you as much. Because I grew up in such hard circumstances, I was constantly bombarded with chaos and challenge. I got really resilient and really good at coping, but I thought that would not that it wouldn't always be that way. Once I got to a certain point, there wouldn't be so many challenges. And actually, it's just that the challenges evolve with you.
Yes.
The stakes get higher and
Yeah.
higher. And so I realized I was setting myself up for failure by thinking there would come a time when there wouldn't be challenges. And I flipped the perception to welcoming epic, epic
Mm,
puzzles to solve, epic and welcoming the epic rewards of solving those puzzles and believing that I would have epic resources to
yeah.
know how to solve those puzzles, right? So
Yeah.
the riddles times the resources times the rewards. And then it
Yeah.
really changed everything for me because I embraced that as we grow and evolve, the riddles are going to grow and evolve. They're
Yeah.
not going to go away. And I'm going
Absolutely.
to like be all over them and be like, okay, what radical responsibility can I take and what
Yes.
epic rewards am I going to experience? Are we going to experience as a result of this? And then it really helped me to come out of that, that momentary feeling of disillusionment that I had been experienced, that I'd only experienced one other time in my life when I was a very young adult, and for the first time in my life realized my eyes had been open to the fact that my family of origin would was not going to support me in the way that I had always supported them and would
Mm,
and believe they would always be there for me. That was definitely disillusioning when I figured that out as a very young woman.
yeah.
But I think that bringing that back to the radical responsibility, it's that if we want to live a life that is not status quo,
Mhm.
and if we want to live an exceptional life, have exceptional fertility even in our 30s and 40s and beyond, have exceptional pregnancy experiences, exceptional families, make an exceptional impact, we
Yes.
we have to embrace that radical responsibility. And
Absolutely.
you don't have to have accomplished a lot to do that. You just have to be willing
Yeah.
to either figure out how to be unafraid, or like me, because people look at me and think I'm fearless. I was the first woman of color in history on the tenure track in the USC Davis School. That shit is not for the faint of heart. Sorry,
That's
I
awesome.
just said a bad word. Were you listening?
That's
Sorry,
okay.
sweetie. And
She's heard her daddy say bad words.
I don't usually say bad words, but that was not for the faint of heart, right? So people think I'm so fearless. I'm not, but I'm so skilled at feeling afraid and doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that's just what we have to be willing to do when it
Yeah.
comes to our fertility, for sure.
Yeah. You don't let fear drive the bus. You
Yes.
let love and
Yes.
have that, just be ready and willing and to go deeper.
Yes. Absolutely.
Uh, uh,
One thing that I read that you said recently was that you'd been sold the lie, the vision that you should focus on your career, and it didn't
yeah.
matter when you partnered, and it didn't matter when you had children, and that you figured out once you started really feeling into this for yourself that that wasn't what you wanted.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say something about that because I recently did an interview where I said, I've never said this before. And it's only because I've only recently started to have this thought. But the thought that I had, what that shocked me the first time it popped into my mind, but I feel like I have to share it, is
Yeah.
that we can have children well past the time that everybody says we're
Yeah.
geriatric, and we can't. And just because we can doesn't mean it's the best thing for us. And I don't mean it in the way
Yeah.
and that's probably a risky, crazy thing for me to say, given that the average age of our mama is 40.6 years old, by the way, 41 years old. And I honestly, I am not, I'm every day we're pushing the boundaries, and I'm
Yeah.
so excited when we get that first 50-year-old natural pregnancy and that first
That's really
55-year-old
awesome.
natural pregnancy. Oh my God, I can't wait for
Yeah.
that. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but here's what I mean by this. Not because of all the things that people say, something will be wrong with your baby, this and that. When
Yeah.
we address our raw material, we greatly reduce the likelihood of any of
Yeah.
those things happening, because it all starts with the raw material. But because once we have them, we love them so
Oh
much
my
that
God.
we realize, man, we would have loved to start having them in our lives 10, 15,
Absolutely.
20 years earlier.
Yeah.
How come nobody told us about that part?
Totally. That's
And
that's the key right there.
yes,
Yeah.
that's so the reason why I'm sharing it is not because I want anyone to think twice about going after their dream of
Right.
having their super baby when they're 42 or 45. But for the people who are younger making decisions,
Yeah.
I want to say to you what I wish someone would have said to me, and what I say to my super babies already, and they're only 10, 8, and 5, which is, it is worth making time for love and family
Yeah.
early in your life. You
Yeah.
won't be sorry that you did that, because there's no amount of credentials and education and money that I would not give up for
Right.
even more time with my super babies. But I didn't feel that I had that option. I came from poverty. My
Yeah.
family of origin was depending on me. I was carrying a lot on my back. I was well into this work. I had a lot of mamas and families depending on me. I was in the lab. I was in the field. I was running around helping
Yeah.
to raise my nephew, do so many things. I actually really felt like there was no time for love in my life, and that it was just inevitable that I was going to be a quote unquote older mom. But
Yeah.
looking back, it didn't have to be that way, but nobody spoke those words to me. So I just want to speak those words. And I tell my super babies, make time. You'll make time for love early. You'll make time
Yeah.
for marriage early. You'll make time for having your super babies early.
Yeah.
I have I'm the day that I met Oprah, which she's my Shiro, was one of the most amazing days of my life. I also met a woman who became a great friend.
Oh.
And she went on to have 2 super grandbabies with us. And her daughter has been with the same person since she was 13 years old. She
Whoa.
got married at 26, and now she's already had 2 super babies. And, she's not even 30 yet. And to me, that is the ideal scenario. Now,
Yeah.
that being said, not
Yeah.
all of us were in that position. I
Right.
thank
Right.
God I didn't marry anybody I was dating at 13 or
Right.
even 26. Let's be honest. I was not making, I wasn't dating people who weren't kind, but they weren't the people
They
who,
weren't your husband.
yeah, they were not. When I met my husband, I was 32 or
Yeah.
33, and I knew he was my husband, like,
Oh.
immediately. I was like, that is who I'm supposed to have my super babies.
Yeah.
Like my
You
DNA.
knew.
Oh
Yeah.
my, it's like my DNA knew. It was
That's
like,
that's the same way I felt. I was 37. Yeah. I was like, I gotta have his babies. Like,
yes, yes. I saw a picture of him as a baby, and I was like, oh yeah, oh my God, I'm
yeah.
so having these super babies. And it's true. I mean, you look at them and they're just, whoo. I mean, we're raising 2
Yeah, your kids
professional
are beautiful.
footballers and
Yeah.
amazing I mean, and they're just so smart, amazing, just amazing, like truly
Yeah.
epitome of super babies, the best of us.
Oh.
And so I appreciate and trust in the timing of my life,
Yeah.
but I would plant different seeds if I could go back and do it again. And I'm planting different seeds intentionally for my super babies. And I think we get
Yeah.
to do that for the people coming up after us, because that's
Oh,
really important.
totally. I totally
Yeah.
agree. As you know, that's why I posted it. Like,
Yes. Yes.
it's like my life's journey. I'm not, no regrets. Like, it is what it is.
Exactly.
Like you said, if somebody would have just planted that seed, like, you can do motherhood and you can have a business, but they can't be done at the same time. Maybe try motherhood, maybe experience love a little sooner. Just try it
Yeah.
out, you know?
Yeah, or
Like,
you can do them at the same time, but maybe you'll do one a little bit more slowly,
totally,
and
totally.
that's okay, but at least you get to make the choice intentionally as
Yeah,
opposed to life and time
yeah,
deciding for you, which I think is the
yeah,
biggest mistake. Really, disaster ensues when we let life and time and people external to us who don't really
yeah,
matter at the end of the day make the decisions for us, like pleasing our bosses, etc.
yeah,
So for the women or humans of all genders listening who are like me, they waited, it didn't feel like an option for because
yeah.
the person they were with or
Life
their
circumstances.
life circumstances. Now's the time.
Yeah,
Like 20 years ago was the best time to plant a garden. Today is the
yeah,
second best time, right? So
totally,
now's
totally.
the time, and there shouldn't be any friction around that. Go for it.
Yeah,
And at the same time, if you're younger and you've been, you keep waiting for the right time, I just want to plant the seed that, this might be the right time to start dipping your
yeah,
toe in the water, start primestering, start getting
yeah,
ready. Even if you don't have your person yet, I find that
yeah.
primestering is really the best energy for calling in the right
Yes,
person,
yes.
because you're on that wavelength of like, I'm getting myself primed for my super
I'm getting
babies.
myself ready.
And then the person who wants to be with me has to be doing that same thing,
They'll
has to
show up.
want to be doing that same thing. And I mean, actually, that was very much what happened for
Yeah,
me when I met my husband. And I just think it's really important for us to have these conversations so
yes.
that people get to hear all sides of it because
Mhm.
it all looks perfect. I mean, it looks perfect, right? And it is perfect. I like my family, man, I'm like head over heels in love with them. It all
Yeah,
works out so
it
beautifully.
works out, yeah.
It does. And I if I had the option, I definitely would have done that 15 years earlier.
Right, that's
Yeah.
it, yeah, I've
Yeah.
said, "What? I didn't know I could love like this, like,
Yes,
this is
that's the
wild."
thing. Yes, that's the thing, and then you love
Yeah,
them so much, and then you're even more in love with your partner
yes,
because
I'm like, "How are you
yeah.
so sexy now?" Like,
Yeah,
"What?"
exactly, exactly. It's like, "Oh my god, you're so
Yes,
dreamy." Yes,
uh,
totally.
but yeah, you're exactly right, this conversation needs to be shared because,
Yep,
you said women today have, similar to me, who've been sold the girl boss dream, or
yep,
they've been encouraged to wait till later, but you can primester, you can get ready now,
yes,
and somebody else somewhere, probably close to you, is getting ready to be your partner, and
yes,
I promise you, God will make it, y'all sync up. Like,
yes.
it will happen.
And for those of you who are farther along in your reproductive span, as we
Yeah,
call it, and you haven't started, today's a great day to get
it
started. So
is great. Yeah,
don't feel frozen by the fact that you haven't, because even if you can't go back in time and be a 25-year-old first time mom,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Still to this day, every day that you're not with your super baby matters.
Oh,
So
yeah.
take your dream of your super baby and your family seriously and focus on it like you would any other dream. Like you did
Any
your
work
major,
project.
your
Yeah,
internship, your work project. If you're
yeah,
married, the way you planned your wedding day. I mean,
yeah.
the outfit you plan for a special occasion gets more
Totally.
emphasis, right? More
Yes.
focus. Channel that there.
Yeah.
Today's a great day to start that.
Oh. Okay, can I ask you a few questions that were submitted before?
Yes. Yes, please
Okay.
ask me. Ask me.
All right, so the focus has been definitely on, we'll say, geriatric pregnancy. So the
Yeah.
questions were submitted. You know, how do you feel? What are your thoughts when the Western medicine world says women expire at 35?
We consider 35 so young, by the
Great.
way, so young.
Yeah.
And the reality is that there are changes, and peak fertility in females happens somewhere between the ages of 24 and 32 years old. But here is the most important. If you remember nothing else that I've said today, remember this. There's a difference between our chronological age and our biological age. Chronological age is how old you are. I'll be 46 this year. That's my chronological age.
Dang, you look great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You look amazing. You're now 40, 41, 41. See, you look amazing. And the thing is, we can look amazing on the inside. And that is what helps our biological age be younger than our chronological age. And that is the goal. So
Brilliant.
you can be 35 and you can be biologically younger than most 25-year-olds. So don't worry about your chronological age. Worry about being as youthful biologically, epigenetically, reproductively as humanly possible. That's what you're doing when you're addressing your epigenome. You're slowing and reversing the ticking of your biological clock and your biological age. That's the thing to focus on, because look, there are a lot of 20-year-olds who are very unhealthy. And actually that's why fertility challenges. Yeah. Well, a lot of people, right? But that's a great example of how, even if you didn't take care of yourself when you were younger, you still have the opportunity now. And get this, the just 8 of the activities that we do in the Primester protocol were recently found to add up to 24 years of life for males and up to 21 years of life for females. That's what I'm talking about being as biologically youthful as possible. So forget about your chronological age. First of all, you have no control over it. It's done. It is what it is. We were born the day we were
41
born.
today, Lindsay.
Yes, exactly. We can't change that. But you have a lot of leverage when it comes to your biological age. And by the way, most of that starts here. That's again why the psychological hygiene and habits and identity are so foundational in the Primester protocol, because they have such an incredible impact on our biochemical profile and our biological age. So forget about, first of all, 35 is young.
Yeah, when I say that now, I'm like, what?
Yeah, chronologically, but most importantly, be young biologically. That's the answer.
Yeah. Okay. So just a question came up that I think readers, listeners would like. What is 1 or 2 free things that somebody could do today to keep them biologically young?
Okay, so that's a really great question, because there are a lot of free things that you can do to keep yourself biologically young. And it starts with a concept called hormesis or hormetic stress.
Nice.
This is where you strategically apply therapeutic levels of stress so that it keeps your systems and your cells and your mitochondria on their toes, so that they're constantly improving their function. They're clearing out the parts that aren't working well, and they're building up strength and resilience. So that's an incredible thing to do. So we call this shuffling and gliding, but basically some examples are hot and cold exposure, for example. Flooding and withholding oxygen is another example. Obviously, you need to know exactly how to do all these things and do them under the guidance of a practitioner. Come Primester with us, whatever it may be. But this is really important. But 2 really important ones: your psychological hygiene and habits, number 1. And then number 2, your nutritional inputs. They are critically important, both in terms of food and supplementation.
It's awesome. Woo! Okay, so a lot of women that go the IVF, IUI route, they get told things which I know you've posted about, and I cannot remember which post I'm thinking of, but like low ovarian reserve or egg quality. Like those seem to be the 2 biggest things.
Huge. Yeah.
And I know you work on those and talk about those in the Primester. But anything come up that you want to share with the audience right now?
Yes. Okay. So this hormetic stress is really important for both your ovarian reserve and your egg quality, also for sperm quality and quantity. By the way, this isn't just the work of females. I want to make that really clear. But most people who are going into IVF are doing so because they have age related declines in the quality and quantity of their eggs. So, ovarian reserve is a term for that
Yeah.
AMH level. When the AMH level is low, that's an indicator of that. If estradiol is low, if FSH is high, those are all indicators of diminished ovarian reserve. The rates of diminished ovarian reserve or premature ovarian failure are increasing every single year, as are the rates of miscarriage, by the way. So we have this incredible mismatch between our
Yeah.
modern world
Yeah.
that we live in and the reproductive the world
Biology.
that our reproductive biology evolved to function and to
Yeah.
thrive in. So in the trimester protocol, one of the things we're doing is trying to close that gap as
Yeah.
much as possible so that our reproductive biology feels supported and feels like it's living in the world that it was meant to live in and meant to thrive in, meant to flourish in. That hormetic stress is a part of that picture, but there are the pathways are enormous. Like we have this crazy diagram that shows like what goes into making my super baby, and it looks like those pictures of the cell phone networks that you see on like cell phone ads or
Yeah.
whatever. It has like all these hubs with all these connections. I mean, that really is what goes into making your super baby, what goes into your fertility and pregnancy system, what goes into your egg quality. But there are a lot of levers that you can pull. They're all epigenetic in nature, but you want to be thinking about hormetic stress. You want to be thinking about blood sugar. You want to be thinking about increasing insulin sensitivity. You want to be thinking about increasing nitric oxide production. There's an
Mm.
inverse relationship between stress hormones and sex hormones. So as stress hormones are
Yeah.
going up, sex hormones are becoming depleted. You've got to focus on your underlying HPA function. And you're, like I said, going back again to the foundations, your
Yeah.
psychological hygienes and habit. Come, Luxor, my oldest super baby, Luxor is here. He's actually coming because he's going to be leaving for football training, and he needs me to braid his hair before he goes.
Ah,
This is Lindsay, and she has her super baby girl, Vera, there. We're
let
doing
me
an
get my boob out
interview.
of the way.
Oh, no, that's okay. Don't worry. This is Luxor. Is he signed with the Benfica Football Academy? So we've been hanging out in Europe. Our company is based. It
That's
was in Los
awesome.
Angeles, and now it's in Las Vegas. But we are here because this one is
That's
doing some
awesome.
amazing. He signed at 8 years old, right? Talk about super baby.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Good for you. I
yes.
just watched the David Beckham documentary on I guess it was Netflix.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
He loves to watch that stuff. It really inspires him. He's like committed to greatness.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just
cute
inside
too.
of him. Yeah, it's
Aw.
amazing. I'm gonna finish up and then I'll come braid your hair. Okay, son?
Okay.
I love you.
Love you.
He's so delicious.
So cute.
Tell me what other questions.
Okay, yeah, I got distracted.
No, it's okay.
Kids are awesome.
They're so
Okay, so last question, specifically for me, because I'm like, I want to get in, and I'm thinking about joining you. For baby number 2,
yeah,
how long would you wait between kiddos?
that's a
Um,
great
she's
question.
6 months now. When should
Okay.
I start getting ready? Because I know there's others out there thinking this.
Yes. Okay. So nature's spacing of children is 2 years. And that's because it gives the body enough time to heal.
Yeah,
First of all, it gives you enough time to breastfeed and really
yeah.
nourish the child, and then the body, the uterus to heal and get ready for another pregnancy. Now, a lot of people are semi-menopausal when they're breastfeeding, so have very reduced fertility when they're breastfeeding,
Is that
especially when
like
they're
natural at any age?
it's most potent when you're exclusively breastfeeding for
Okay.
those first 6 months, but it can last a long time. It depends when you
Right.
start to, when you resume your menses, right? So some
Yeah.
people take longer. I always took a long time to get my period again, but I produced like enough milk for a village, and I would feed
Yeah.
my super baby so much. And then we also I fed a lot of children in our community in the
Yeah.
pediatrician's office, because the pediatrician was like, I have this really healthy mom who has so much milk, and anyone who needed it, I didn't feed them directly, but I would pump and donate a bunch
Totally.
of milk.
Yeah.
So I always didn't get my period for 13 months.
Wow.
So, but then I was committed most of the time getting pregnant on month 14 or 15.
Ah,
So that means that I needed to make sure I got my period and I regulated my cycle. So what I recommend is that you allow your first super baby to have her 12th month or her first birthday, and
mhm.
then you can go ahead and get pregnant anytime after that. But you
Okay.
want to start trimestering at least 120 days out, and you can start doing it now, because trimester
Okay.
life is great for postpartum and breastfeeding,
Yeah.
and for pregnancy also, with a
Yeah.
few modifications. So
Okay.
some people come to trimester when they're already pregnant because they're afraid they're going to have a miscarriage, or they just want to,
Oh,
they
okay.
didn't know about the trimester before.
Yeah.
And in those cases, they do the exact steps with a few modifications. You would do those same things
Hmm.
while you're still breastfeeding, because let's say, for example, really opening up your detoxification pathways.
Yeah.
That's something that you want to be doing while you're pregnant or breastfeeding, because all it's like pulling up a dusty rug and shaking it out in the room.
Right.
All of the toxins get released into the bloodstream so that the body can excrete them. But breast milk is made from the blood, so you don't want that going into the milk
Baby
supply,
girl.
for
Yeah.
example. So what you're going to do is you're going to start primestering you as soon as possible, but you'll do it as it's modified for pregnancy, even when you're breastfeeding.
Awesome. That
And then
makes sense. Yeah.
and then when she has her first birthday, then from there you go for it,
Game
because
on.
yeah, exactly, because that's giving your body, she's like, okay, because that's giving your body the right amount of time to heal.
Right.
And also something happens, because there are a lot of changes in the brain that happen, in the heart that happen during pregnancy and postpartum. But there's like some sort of amazing click that happens where you start to feel more like yourself around the first birthday. So you'll actually feel more ready to be
Mhm.
pregnant again
Yeah.
at that point. Yeah.
More welcoming of
Yes.
the next
Welcoming in
chapter.
of your super
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
So when you're ready, if you're ready now, welcome. We'll
I'm
take you
ready.
in. Yeah. Okay. Welcome.
Well, I
Well,
was just thinking about, because I'm right at 6 months. She's probably going to start being introduced to solids in the next
yes.
month or so. It's
Yes.
like, okay, I wonder, like, what should I be doing the sauna and cold plunge again, like getting back on my routine? Uh,
Yes. The
but I haven't,
sauna,
it's
the
just scattered.
sauna, the sauna, because it does release
The
toxins,
toxins.
I might hold off on a
Yeah.
little bit. I mean, to be honest, she's big and she's healthy. My super
She's
babies
great.
were enormous and
Yeah.
super. So I wasn't like, once they got to the point of eating food, I
Yeah.
wasn't I wasn't perfectly strict about not having any exposure to something that would increase
Yeah.
detoxification, but also because I make sure that I poop a lot,
Yeah.
right? And if you are and you're drinking a lot of water, then you're getting the stuff out more. There are a lot of people who just, by the way, that's like one of the simplest
Yeah.
fertility and longevity hacks,
Please.
is to just make sure that you are
You're
pooping
pooping.
enough. Yes.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and excreting enough. So
Mhm.
water, urinating and pooping. That's like super important. So you probably have some leeway to start going into the sauna, but I would really do that in moderation and just
Yeah.
give her a little more time, like when she's not
Cool.
drinking as much breast milk. And that's really an exception. If you have a baby who's not very big, who has any sort of, you have any
Any
concerns
growth
about their
there.
robustness, if they were born preterm, anything like that, I would be very, very, very cautious, very
Yeah.
cautious.
That's really good advice. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to email you later.
Yeah. No, you email me and we'll take care of you. We're
Awesome.
excited to have you.
So where can people find you? Where social media, website, things like
Yes.
that? How
Yes.
can they get involved with you?
Yes. So let's first things first. If somebody needs help getting
Yeah.
pregnant, staying pregnant, or they just want to optimize to have their super baby, then they should immediately go to fertilitypregnancy.org/consult, and we will do a free consultation for them
That's
there.
super
Okay.
nice. Yeah.
Yes. So if you need that, that's the place you should go right away. We have a lot more demand than supply. So go in there, look for what's available. If for some reason you can't find one available, email support@fertilitypregnancy.org. We are trying to open up at least a few more every week. So go in there, fertilitypregnancy.org/consult is where you go for the consultations. If you need to email the support team, email support@fertilitypregnancy.org. If you just want to get started with information, starting to think about what should I be doing, what is trimestering, how do I start dipping my toe, then go to fertilitypregnancy.org, and right there on the homepage, you can get a free checklist that will give you very specific steps that can help you get started. So if you're like,
Awesome.
I needed my super baby yesterday, or I want my super baby like ASAP, then you go to fertilitypregnancy.org/consult. If you just want to start dipping your toe, then you go ahead and go to fertilitypregnancy.org and get that free gift that's waiting there for you. And anything we do that's free, by the way, there's no fluff. Like, it is deep dive learning. I always teach at a very high level. So go in there, work the steps that I teach you.
Awesome. Love it. And then where can people find you on social?
Okay, so I think I'm on most of the channels,
Yeah.
but on Instagram, I'm at Dr._Cleopatra. It's not great that it has the underscore, or if you just type in Dr. Cleopatra, you'll find me. And I have to say, I like Instagram a lot, so I hang out most there. On TikTok, which I'm starting to really like, is just Dr. Cleopatra. So that's there. And then I'm on Facebook, and we have a private Facebook group called The Art and Science of Getting Pregnant, which is really like one of the most loving places on the internet. So supportive, and lots of great information in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, we hit right at an hour. I know I've taken your time, and your son needs you, but
yes,
yeah, you've offered, I know, so many women hope already.
Thank
and
you.
Just like I said at the beginning, you're doing God's work. It's a breath of fresh air to follow you on social media.
Thank you.
So I think, like, that's what I think social media is about, is like finding these high vibing women, people that you want to associate with, and just shift your life, shift your vibe in that way. And so if you're listening and you're having fertility obstacles, or in the throes of the fertility and fertility journey, definitely reach out to Dr. Cleopatra.
Yes.
Anything you want to say before we go?
Just that there's truly no more competent, committed, and caring place on the planet for your fertility support and strategy and success. Truly. I mean, I've been doing this work for almost 28 years formally, and I did this work for peanuts for a very long time. And that's because I'm in love with this work. I'm devoted to this work. Like, when you come to us, you get everything that you need: the tools, the love, the support,
the heart and soul,
the best tools in the world. So if you need help, or just want to prevent any possibility of having any issues because of age, PCOS, or some other diagnosis, you just want your super baby, then you come here, and you are in the best place you could possibly be. And I mean that with all my heart and all my confidence. And I'm not a person to toot my own horn. I just know the 100,000 hours that have gone into
you're speaking from your heart
of what we do. So that's all
I love
say.
it.
Yeah.
This has been an awesome conversation. I could go
Okay.
on, but
Me
get
too.
to your family.
Okay. Sending
Thank
you
you so much.
Sending you and Vera off with so much
Thank
love, and
you.
just everyone listening, sending you off with love and super baby dust, super baby number 2 dust. I can't wait. And I'll see you again soon. I'll reach out.
Yes, we'll be in touch. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Dr. Cleopatra.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, y'all. That's a wrap. That is a wrap. How amazing was that? Be sure to go and find fertilitypregnancy.org. Go to the website, the Fertility and Pregnancy Institute, which is Reconceiving Conception. That is Dr. Cleopatra's website, where she talks all about the trimester. You can get signed up for the trimester and just be on your fertility journey with hope and love and support, like she said. All right, if you need anything at all, email us info@birthfit.com, and be sure to leave us a review. Vera says, leave us a review, please, on iTunes. Much love to y'all. I will see y'all, talk to y'all, be in contact on the DMs and social, whatever. You know the drill. All right, bye, y'all.